In this video, I'll be sharing with you a tutorial on how to cut this stylish asymmetric conical funnel corsets. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. So this corset pattern is from Synthetic Fit on Instagram. So to start, here is my pattern, and I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline, and my blouse length, which I added 5 inches after my waistline. Now after marking this, I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2, I have 7. Now I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and here I'll go ahead to mark a basic neckline of 3 inches. I'll place my ruler, connect from my shoulder slope to the neckline of my pattern, and I'm using this part to serve as a guide. Next, I'm going to mark my chest line, and to get that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, which I went ahead to mark, and I drew out a straight line at that point. I'll place back my tape and mark my shoulder divided by 2 and place my ruler and draw a straight line. Now I'll divide what I have here into 2, and from that midpoint I'm going to come out by ½ inch. Here I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. From here I'll connect this all the way up and connect from this point all the way to the chest line. The next step is to mark my dart, and to mark your dart you're going to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I went ahead to mark this all the way down because my nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2, I have 3.5 inches. But after ruling a straight line connecting my pattern, I decided to use a slanted dart for this pattern. What I'll do is to come in here by 2.5 inches at this point. Now I'm going to connect from the bust down to that 2.5 inches. Now what I will now do is to mark my dart intake, but before doing that, I'll erase this initial line I have here. So after marking this, I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides. Now if you're plus size, please go ahead to use 1.5 inches on both sides of your pattern. For me, I'm using 1 inch. Now I'll place my ruler and I'm going to go ahead to connect my lines. So after connecting, I'm going to come down by ½ or 1 inch from the bust line. Then I'll connect to my under bust. This is to prevent my pattern from having a sharp edge. So I'm just going to connect, and after connecting, I'm going to mark out this basic neckline I have here. It will be serving as a guide for my pattern because I want to connect my dart line to the shoulder. Now from the neckline to the shoulder, I'll divide what I have into 2, place my ruler and draw a straight line connecting at that point. So after marking this, I'll come up by 2 inches. Please go ahead to measure where you want the neckline of your pattern to start. So from here now, I'll mark 0.75 inches on both sides. So I don't want to have much gaping at my pattern, so that's why I'm using the 0.75 on top. Now I'll connect to both sides of my pattern. So after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to outline my pattern to make it more visible for you to see. After I'm done outlining, I'll blend out the bustier part of this pattern. After this, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now for the dart intake I will replace, I'll take this one I have on the chest line. I don't want to have excess allowance on the side because for this pattern all you need is just ½ inch for your sewing allowance. Here I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace this at this side, and then add my sewing allowance. After I'm done marking this, I'm going to go ahead to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to measure the dart intake, and I'm going to replace the dart intake that I took out here. Now I'll add just ½ inch for my sewing allowance. So first I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches dart intake, replace, and add ½ inch for my sewing allowance. This is a conical corset, which has an extension by the lower part. So we'll be doing that much later. Now I'll go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting at this part, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches for my bust dart. Now to get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches, while my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5 inches. So if you take out 15.5 from 17, you have 1.5. So here I'm going to mark an extension of 3 inches, and I'll be connecting this from the waist to that 3 inches to get the conical effect at the lower hemline. So now for your conical effect, you can also use 2 inches or 2.5. The effect we have here is wide enough, so I'm using 3 inches. I'll come up by 1.5 inches, but I later readjusted it to that of 1 inch by the side of my pattern, right? And I'm just going to go ahead to recorrect this part and connect it back. So I'll start extending this down to the hemline. So here I'll close up my dart. From the hemline, I'll come up a bit, like 1 inch or 1.5. So from here I will now connect it to the other side. I blended out my dart so that I can easily connect it to the other side of my pattern this way. I'll connect, and from this side you can come down by 2 inches, 1.5 or 2.5. So I used 2.5 inches. This totally depends on you. Now from here I'll now connect this going in. I'll come in by 2.5 inches at this point. Now I'll slant this down. After that, I'll go ahead to come up here by 1 inch and I'll reconnect. From here, I will now go down and then reconnect at the side. So I'll go ahead to blend out what I have on the hip area of my pattern. I want to snatch my waistline and I want to add a style line. I'll go ahead to blend out my bust dart and place my ruler to create my style line for this pattern. Now, depending on what you want to snatch on your waist or take out from your 2 inches, my waist is 28, my waistline, right, to make it 26. So to do that, on each quarter of my pattern, I'll be taking out 0.5 inches. On the front left side of my pattern, I'll take out 0.5. On the front right side of my pattern, I'll take out 0.5. With that way, I'm going to have 1 inch taken out from my waistline. Now I'll also repeat this at the other side of my pattern at the back. I'll take out 0.5 inches on the left side of my back and take out 0.5 inches on the right side of my back. For the front and the back, giving me another 1 inch. So since I'm sharing half inch on both sides of the front pattern, that means I'll be sharing this 0.5 inches on both of this my style line, meaning I'll mark 0.25 on each side, and I'm going to go ahead to extend this up and then connect this all the way down to the lower part of my pattern. So I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline it to make it more visible for you to see. Now after I'm done marking this, let's work on the upper part. The bust point, I'll come down by ½ inch, and from that ½ inch I came down from, I'm going to go down a bit going towards the bust point or the bust area, and then I'll take this up to the chest line this way. Now I'll just go ahead to use my marker to outline my pattern. So after working on that part, we'll be working on the neckline. The neckline, I'm just going to go up by 1 inch above this point I have here. So from there, I'll go ahead to go in and reconnect this at the upper part. So I'm trying to get the neckline that we have here. So if you're not okay with what I have, please go ahead to readjust. So from here I came down by 2 inches and I'm going to go ahead to reconnect. So you can see me trying to blend out the neckline. So my chest line area is a little smaller, so I'm just trying to draft out what I have there. Now at the side we have like an asymmetric shape at that side, which I also try to cut out. Right now, this is what I have here, and I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern. But first, I'll go ahead to outline my pattern. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please kindly hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So this is what my pattern looks like, and next I'll label it and we'll go ahead to cut it out. So if you have any question, please go ahead to leave your question at the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please kindly hit on the subscribe button. Now I'll just go ahead to cut this out, and after cutting this out, we'll now go ahead to cut out the back pattern. So for the back pattern, there's nothing much going on at the back. Now also for this pattern, it is a funnel corset, so we are going to place another pattern paper underneath to cut out the bustier area of this pattern. So I'll place this way, make sure it's at the under bust, and I'm going to go ahead to trace this out. After tracing out, I will now go ahead to cut out the part I don't need, which will be serving as the funnel corset part of this pattern. Now I'll also repeat this at this other side. I'll make sure I blend out my dart, fold out my under bust, and I'll go ahead to trace out the rest of my pattern. So if you have any question or any part you don't understand, please kindly go ahead to ask your question. Now after cutting this, we are going to cut out our second dart line or style line area, and I'll cut this out. So after cutting out my pattern, I went ahead to chop out the side we are not using for the funnel corset, and this is what I have. For the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements just like we did for the front. I marked the chest line, bust, shoulder to waist, and then 5 inches after my waistline. Also remember, my shoulder to waist at the back is shorter than that of my shoulder to waist at the front. Mark my dart. I'll start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches, which I went ahead to mark all the way going down to the lower part of this pattern. So after marking a straight line there, I'm going to mark my dart. Mark my dart, I'm going to mark my basic dart intake of ½ inch on both sides of the waistline, and from the bust I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll place my ruler and I'll connect this all the way up and connect at the other side. From my waist, I'm going to measure about 4 inches, which I'll connect from the waistline to that point, and also repeat this at the other side. Next is to insert my measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add ½ inch. Here I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake. I'll replace and add ½ inch for my sewing allowance. You don't need much sewing allowance for this pattern. After I'm done marking this, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4 at the lower part of my pattern. After marking that, I'll add my sewing allowance. Now I'll be also marking out the conical effect at the lower part of this dress. But first, I'm going to connect my pattern. So for the conical effect, I'll mark an extension of 3 inches. Now, to make sure that I have the same shape that I also have at the front, I'll place my pattern this way and I'll go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to still come up by that same 1 inch here, and I'm going to now go ahead to connect this all the way up. So the back pattern is a bit high, and this is what I have. Now I'm going to come in by 2 inches because that is what I want on the lacing area. So you can use 1.5, 1 inch depending on how open you want it to be. And I'll make a dot to indicate I have a lacing. I'll come down by ½ inch here, and I'll go ahead to connect this all the way up to avoid the lacing bar popping up. After this, I'll just go ahead
to use my marker to outline my pattern. After outlining my pattern, I'll add a style line. I want to snatch my waist just like I did for the front. So I'll share that 0.5 inches into two and it will give me 0.25. Initially when I marked, I mistakenly shared 1 inch giving me 0.5, which will make me snatch my back more. So I had to readjust it back to the 0.25 on both sides, and I'll go ahead to connect this all the way down. After I was done connecting, I'm done drafting out my pattern. Now I'll just go ahead to cut this out. If you have any question, please kindly leave it at the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead to hit on the subscribe button and see you in our next video. Thanks.